The Villainess show. I feel like ever since I've seen My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom, I keep seeing so many more of these villainous shows pop up. It seems like it's now a very popular isekai trope, and I get it. After watching the first Villainous show, I've now watched I'm in Love with the Villainess, and now this show, and my final thought is that it's great. Now before we start the video, make sure to like and subscribe so we can get this to a wider audience. Now, onto the video. I remember when I first heard the premise of the first Villainous show, a show where a girl gets isekai into her favorite Otome game, but she becomes the villainess who suffers a bad fate at the end of the game. The MC knows this, so she does everything in her power to avoid that fate. It sounds very dramatic, but it's actually pretty funny, on top of her trying to avoid her fate. I was really interested in the premise, so I watched it, and I even did a review on it, which you can check out here. Anyway, ever since then, it seems like I've become more and more interested in these types of shows, and I've watched a couple of them now. This show aired at the beginning of the year, and the premise sounded so ridiculous that I had to watch it. So the show's premise is about Kenzaburo, a 52-year-old bureaucrat who ends up getting hit by a truck after saving a kid's life. Classic truck-kun. He ends up getting reincarnated into an Otome game called Magical Academy, Love and Beast, and of course, he becomes the villainess of the story. Being an otaku himself, he knows a lot about anime, and even a little bit about this game, because his daughter is a huge fan of it. Using his knowledge, he tries to navigate the game as usual, posing as the villainess. Unfortunately, he's a little too kind for the role, so he ends up influencing the game in such a drastic way that the game ends up being something completely different. Using his bureaucrat skills, he still does his best to land the MC of the game on a route so that the game can progress as per usual. It sounds kinda strange. A 52-year-old man in the body of a young girl? Sounds kinda sus. But trust me, it's not bad. In fact, there's really no fan service at all. It reminds me a little bit of Tanya the Evil. Guy gets reincarnated as a young girl who's literally Hitler. Crazy. Anyway, like I said previously, the MC getting reincarnated into a game world is a cool idea, and equipped with the vague knowledge of the game and his knowledge of otaku culture as a whole, he can guess where the rank-up events are supposed to be with the MC of the game. It's fun seeing him navigate the game, because using his skills from his everyday job, he can navigate the game in a skilled and graceful manner. This show's mainly a slice-of-life comedy, and man is it funny. All of the characters make me laugh in some way, shape, or form. Anna's the main protagonist of the Otome game. She's a commoner who gets into this school full of a bunch of upper-class folks. In the original game, she gets bullied a lot by the villainess about her being a commoner, so she studies hard to prove her wrong. But in this game, because of Kenzaburo's kindness as Grace, Anna studies hard because Grace, or Kenzaburo, wants her to. Instead of Anna falling in love with any of the male counterparts, she basically falls in love with Grace. I don't know why, but man, these shows have some heavy Yuri undertones. Not really, but it always seems like someone's in love with the villainess. Like in the Next Life as a Villainess show, it's Mary who gets obsessive over Katarina. In I'm in Love with the Villainess, it's the MC of the show who likes the villainess, as you could have probably guessed by the title. Although that one's actually a Yuri romance. And this show. Seeing two girls as friends in an anime and it not being a Yuri couldn't be any one of these villainous shows. Most of the romantic partners are funny too. Lucas Vierge is a troublemaker and very unpredictable. Lambert Balance, funny name, is a perfectionist who could be obsessed over very little details. Richard Versailles, who speaks in puns.
Oh no!
He's definitely one of my favorites. And the others. The others aren't really too interesting in my opinion. Now, there are some really interesting things in this show that actually involve the real world for once, and the dynamic between the original Grace and the main protagonist. But that's all I can say without spoilers. With spoilers, however, I can tell you about the really cool aspects of this show. But again, spoilers. So be warned. Now, with isekai shows, a lot of the time, they forget about the real world and focus mainly on the fantasy world, but this show actually does bring up the real world, and there's a big focus on it. Obviously, since Kenzaburo was a bureaucrat in his past life, many situations call for his recollection and skills from his job, which is cool to see. What's also cool to see is that the family of the main protagonist gets involved as well. Something happens where the real-life game doesn't turn off, and the mom and daughter can see everything happening within the game, even Kenzaburo's thoughts. They can even influence the game in certain ways, which is really cool. The daughter is the expert in the game, so she's kind of the one detailing what's going on in the game and what should happen, and the mom's kind of there for the ride. She's funny too. She's also a big otaku, so she accepts the fact that her husband is trapped in the game pretty fast. It's funny. That's pretty interesting, but what's even more interesting is that Kenzaburo can actually see into Grace's memories. She was still a villainess before Kenzaburo came into play, and everyone in the game even questions why her personality has changed so much, which brings the question, what happened to the original Grace? Funny this question comes into play because the show actually does mention this. Unfortunately, it's just a tease where they show Grace's personality trapped in a cage, but then they never mention it again. Which brings me to my next point. I like this show, a lot honestly. It was funny, and I was always interested in what would happen next, until a little after the halfway point. Around episode 9, there's an episode that just straight up feels like filler. It's funny because the Next Life is a Villainess show has a similar episode, where the characters get sucked into a book and they have to fulfill their desires to get out. For this show, the princes get sucked into a Rubik's Cube, and Grace and Anna need to solve puzzles with each prince. They have to solve one side of the cube to bring one of the princes out to help them with the puzzle. Not only do they have this episode, but the final arc is a school arc that doesn't really contribute anything. They also drop the whole, quote-unquote, Grace's personality being trapped in a cage thing. And then they add another question. Who's the mother of Grace, and why does she have the foresight to know things about Grace that she shouldn't, or predict things with the play? It makes me kinda sad, and learning that there's not enough source material to continue right now for a season 2 makes me even sadder. That's it for spoilers. The character designs and the animation are great though. It's made by Ajia-do, and they've done some pretty good stuff like Ascendance of a Bookworm, Kakushigoto, and even the adaptation of Sign of Affection. The opening's pretty good, but the ending is straight fire. It's actually a cover of a famous Japanese song called Matsuken Samba, and oh my gosh, this song is incredibly catchy. I love the animation of the ending too. They're all dancing and whatnot. Overall, I think this show is great, but there's so many unanswered questions, so a season 2 is desperately needed. But with no confirmation, we're kinda just left hanging. In any case, I'd still recommend this show. If you want to check it out, it's on AniHive actually. It's one of their exclusives. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when a new video drops. See you next time, and don't forget, join the Hive Mind.